Augusta here from the new face of finance. Augusta here from the new face of finance. So as we're going into the autumn months of 2020, I figured it would be good to summarize how our business summer went. It's been an insane year for the whole world. I feel massively blessed despite a lot of life's challenges. And I guess what I want to do today is talk through what's been happening across our, I want to say 3.5 businesses, nearly 4, and I'll explain why as we go. So I'm going to start off with my advisory business. Probably the first business that I started was my advisory business when I was part of the advisory firm Foster & Nova over in the city. And what do? I give mortgage advice to people who are buying residential and buy-to-let properties. I also advise on more specialist products like bridging loans and further advances and development and commercial finance. In any case, I do feel that the advisory business was probably the mother of a lot of the other businesses because although brokerage businesses, advisory businesses tend to not have an intrinsic value and generally linked to the business person. So I am the value of the business, so I can scale it and sell it like, you know, on Amazon or McDonald's or anything like that. They are very good cash flow businesses, and in fact, that was the business that provided a lot of the cash flow that we used to get started in the other businesses. So anyway, I've been a broker for about 6 years now. Obviously, set up my own brokerage, and so this year it was a really rough start to the year. Anyway, there was lots going on. I was getting married in February, going on a honeymoon in March, and then all of a sudden lockdown. And I had a couple of people working for me, which I had to make redundant, and I've spoken about this in other videos. There was no business. There was for me, there was no property finance business between March and probably the end of May this year. So although it was a little bit concerning, I did really enjoy the break. It was a good mental and physical break, and it also meant I was able to focus on other businesses and really think about my life and the life that I wanted now as a newly married woman with my husband and burgeoning family. Once the lockdown started to ease from June onwards, business picked up again. We picked up from where we left off on a lot of the cases. In fact, June was incredibly busy. Hired back one of the girls that I'd made redundant, in fact. And we were super busy in June, quite busy in July. Things started to tail off a little bit in August, but I think that happens in the summer months because people are more focused with getting their summer holidays in and preparing to put their kids back in school and all that pre-autumnal stuff. So it was quite quiet in August, but that's okay. And it helped that because June and July had been so busy, we were supported by, the remnants of what was going on. So, I was receiving 4 or 5 mortgage offers for the last few months, and we'll see what happens now as we go into the later months of the year. Second business is the property development business. So first business that was started was the advisory business. Probably the second business that came to fruition was the property development business. And we've developed quite a few houses. We've done 3 major developments and created 5-6 units from these projects. We'd completed on the refinance of the most recent development in October 2019. It was tough, it was super challenging, and actually I was really glad for the break, thing is, you refinance out of a project, but there's always things that you need to figure out, like, you know, who you're going to let the property out to. Once you refinance out, now you've got these monthly mortgage payments, whereas the loan was rolled up for a number of months. Why did we not keep it rolled up? Because it's super expensive. It's actually cheaper. The interest rate is cheaper to put it on a mortgage, but then you've got the challenge of paying this mortgage. And so we had to pay this mortgage, and then we were planning for this wedding. And the other thing is, I don't know how we got away with it, but we managed to refinance, and there was no electricity in the property. It was ready, but the mains that were needed to be connected to make the electricity work hadn't been connected quite yet. And it took a little while because there was so much dispute with the utilities. Look, I'm probably going to do more and more videos as we work on further development projects, but utilities are so key, and it's so important that you sort out utilities as close to the start of the project as possible, or towards the end of the project you're just getting lots and lots of headache. And that was the one thing I massively learned on the last project. So the result was that we didn't actually get any electricity in the property until literally a few days before the wedding. I think our wedding was like February 22nd, and the electricity came on like February 18th. It was like too close for comfort, but I'm so grateful that we managed to get the lights on and the heating on, which meant that we could house some guests in that house, in the spare house. This one site has got 3 houses on it, and we could house some guests in the 5 rooms that were available during the wedding, which obviously was a lovely position to be in. So we've been looking for development projects for the last few months, thinking about new ways to get into them. The projects that we've developed to date, we've used some super specialist weird but financing, which involves cross-collateralizing against my mum's property in Fulham in order to raise finance to do a lot of these projects. But that is no longer an option. We've exhausted that. And so I've been writing to people who owned distressed property in the Margate and Kent and Thanet area, and just saying, look, your property's been sitting on the market for all these months. Clearly you don't really know what to do. You're asking for a price that actually doesn't make sense when you think about having to gut that property out and rebuild it and then sell it. It's just not worth what you're asking. So how about we work together and we bring the sweat equity, we develop it, we sell it, you get the market value that you want, and then, you know, we have a profit share at the end. I've written about 3-4 letters, not many, because there's not that many projects in that situation, and we haven't really had much in the way of responses. I think that Kent, Thanet, still massively traditional, as in, buy my house, I don't want to work with you. But one thing I do know in property, especially when it comes to finding development deals, is that sometimes it takes a bit of time. Sometimes you've just got to keep going and knocking on enough doors, and eventually you'll speak to the right person. Cold letters are hard. If we could end up in a meeting with these people and have a chat with them, and they'd understand our experience and come along and see the projects we've done, it'd be easier to convert. But how do you do that in a pandemic? That's super hard. In any case, while we're waiting to find these right kind of projects, my mother and I had a discussion. The house that we grew up in Fulham, and in fact, the house that was used to fund a lot of the developments to date, or all of the developments that we've done to date, it's just my mum living there, my little sister, and it's a 6-bed house in Fulham. Literally, the house directly next door had received planning permission to turn its property into 4 flats, had converted, and now was selling the 4 flats off. So I spoke to Mum about this, and we decided that actually we're going to seek planning to do exactly the same thing. I think our property's slightly bigger, so I think we'll be able to get more out of it, and we're not going to sell. We're just going to refinance. Now, the sale values of that property next door are going to be important in determining the GDV, or the end value of these units when they're done. But I'm not worried. I think the numbers stack up very well. All our projects to date have been tight. I've been massively tight with the numbers, and there's lots of headroom in this. And as well as headroom, we've got all this experience and a bit of time. So that's going to be our next development project. And then we'll see what happens after that. My mum's quite psyched. I guess the next challenge is, you know, she's lived in this place for like 24 5 odd years. Like, where do you go live now? But I think she's ready for the challenge, and she has got a room here in our house in Margate. So, you know, there's that option. And I think, you know, as she gets into her twilight, her later years, she starts thinking about how she wants to spend this time going forward. Third business that we set up was a short let business, which obviously followed on quite nicely from a development business. Once you develop it, what do you do with it? Anyway, we go on honeymoon, and then the COVID crisis hits, and then we're stuck in South Africa, and we're really, although South Africa is massively tranquil, we're thinking, all right, how are we going to get back to the UK? Because we're here giving this guy extra money to stay in his property, and we've got all these houses that are empty that we could be letting out and making a bucket load, even in this crisis. So when we did get back to the UK, thought about the different ways that we could start to make money from the houses. Obviously trying to respect social distancing norms and whatever was going on in the stratosphere with regards to COVID and the challenges and the lockdown. So we came up with a product, Pay As You Stay, which is like a hybrid between a short let and a tenancy. Now, we'd had tenants previously, but I'm not the biggest fan of tenants, especially not in the Margate area. We develop our houses to an incredibly nice standard. And from experience, we'll let these tenants in, and they're just not used to amazing houses, and they're pouring water on laminate floors, and they're letting their dogs mess our carpets up. And then it's really hard to claim because tenants have so many rights in the UK. Now, I'm not saying that tenants shouldn't have rights, of course they should, but there is a bit of an imbalance. And obviously these rights are in place for landlords who are a bit, to prevent slum landlords, to prevent people who are going to come along and take the mick. But what if you're on the other end of the spectrum and actually you're providing really high quality of property and people are turning up and messing up your houses? There's no recourse. So I think we've just come to the decision as a family, as a company, that we're just not going to be big on tenants. And so, you know, we ran these hybrids, they ran quite well. But then towards the summer, we started getting a lot of like short-term bookings, people who wanted to just come and have a holiday. And although we rejected actually a lot of requests to stay at the property, we did actually start eventually to use a short let. So the two booking platforms that we like, that we use, or we liked and we use, booking.com, which we used for years historically. It has its challenges. You have to know how to use it. You have to be patient. And Home Away. And Home Away, I'd loved giving the whole house away. But I have found this summer there were a lot of people who probably would have gone to Spain had it not been for COVID, decided they were going to stay in the UK, probably not used to having such really lovely houses, but will turn up and then put on what I call this posh act, where it's like, oh, this isn't good enough and that isn't good enough. And it's like, this house is absolutely clean. You're getting so much house, so much quality for the money that you're paying. Just chill. You know what I mean? You know? But they'll stay in the whole property. They'll break the rules, break things, invite guests around that are not allowed to invite guests around, leave, and then try and get half or hold their money back. And this is one of the challenges that we had with Airbnb, which is why we just stopped using Airbnb in the end. So, you know, the thing is, between these models and these platforms, between the direct bookings through the hybrid model, through booking.com, through Home Away, we just have to kind of balance things into the winter. And the summer's always great, we're always inundated in the summers. The challenge is always the winter. Like last winter was our first winter in Margate. It was the winter of discontent. Like, we did not know how quiet it gets in those winter months. And now there is a little bit of nervousness going into winter, thinking, okay, well, what's going to happen? But I think the plan is really to just plug the hybrid product, and hopefully that will take, and we'll get some really decent people. They don't have to be amazing, they just got to be decent enough to carry us through the winter months, and then we'll see what happens after that. The reality is, doesn't matter what platform, people are people. Some are going to be amazing and some are going to be pains in the proverbials. And you just have to learn to deal with it. You've got to have your processes in place, your procedures. You've got to communicate with your business partners. If it's not my husband Nick, who actually runs a lot of the bookings and is a super stern guy, it's our cleaners and our cleaning companies and the people who are supplying things for us to run the business. So, you know, it's tough, it's challenging, you know, there's a lot to consider. It's not for everybody. Some people feel a bit more comfortable, feel more safe in a 9 to 5. That's not us. That's not us. So these are the challenges of being business owners. And then our point 5, our for business number 4.5 or 3.5, 4 business is Amazon business, which was something that I did a lot of research on during the COVID months and Nicholas and I decided that this is what we were going to work on. And if you get it right, it would be very good for supporting those more challenging months during short let when there were gaps in income. However, it has been quite a challenge launching this business. We've waited so many months for things to turn up. They're here now. Most of the packages are put together, but it's a case of just ensuring quality control and getting them posted. So I'm hoping that happens sometime over the next 1 or 2 weeks. Got a separate Amazon account. I just need to understand just the last little bits of figures. But the reality is you're just not going to understand how these things work until you start selling your individual units. So that's the next phase really. So what I'm really hoping is about the next time I sit in front of you, we will have 4 fully fledged businesses that are bringing in money. It's not going to be easy. It hasn't been easy, but it's a fun challenge. It has been mostly fun. I do feel quite blessed. It's nice to just be able to work from home across lots of different businesses, work with lots of interesting people who you can help to support their dream while they help to support yours. So anyway, I hope that this video has been insightful into what we do, what we've been doing, how our summer has looked. I look forward to providing you with the next update and providing you with like some further information about mortgage products or development products. And I'll give you more and more of an update as we start the new development. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, provide any comments. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.